Steve Jobs is a film about Steve Jobs, and if you don't know who that is, then you, my friend, have been living under a rock. He is only probably one of the most well-known entrepreneurs and inventors in history, being the co-founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of the company Apple Incorporated, with which he launched one of the first mass-produced personal computers at the time called the Macintosh, and from which he was fired from in the mid-80s. He was fired from Apple in 1985, and after a series of failures with his company Next, he was rehired as CEO once again more than a decade later, returning the company from bankruptcy back to profitability in the second half of the 90s. With Jobs being known as a hot-headed perfectionist, an extremely gifted and fiercely ambitious person, and possessing great understanding of what does and does not make a person buy a computer, Apple would eventually develop a line of products that would have an immense cultural impact, starting with the iMac, iTunes, iPod, and all of those other iThingies. But that is pretty much in a nutshell. Of course, all of this and much more is touched upon in the movie. However, veteran screenwriter Aaron Sorkin was ingenious about not making this your typical biopic, using the familiar formula of laying out the whole timeline of a person's life and then just jumping from one significant moment to the next. Instead, what he managed to do here was to take that typical free act structure of a script and turn it into something that feels fresh, in which each act is like its own individual episode, its own individual scene, in which the same 7 characters meet up in almost the same set of circumstances, but years apart from each other. With the circumstance always being one of the 3 major product launches of Jobs' career, with the Macintosh in 1984, the Next computer in 1988, and the iMac in 1998. Even though the same sort of meetups and conflicts between these characters take place 3 times in a row, the years that separate them put these characters in very different positions every single time, with them having very different attitudes towards each other every time. Even though this movie has come under some fire for being regarded as way too fictionalized and failing to capture Jobs in any meaningful way, the screenwriter, who based the script on Jobs' official biography and also on interviews conducted by himself, has stated that the only thing purely invented for the film was the coincidental nature of the plot. Which was to be expected, of course. I mean, it would have been impossible for each and every one of these meetups and conversations and conflicts to take place exactly within the preceding 40 minutes between each of these major product launches. I mean, that would have been insane if it happened only once, let alone 3 times. To what percent the film is actually factual, it really shouldn't be a factor in your viewing experience, in my opinion. Danny Boyle did an excellent job directing this. He is the kind of director that, no matter what genre he undertakes, and he has dabbled in many, he always manages to build momentum quite spectacularly. And even here, even in his probably most dialogue-heavy and episodic film he has probably ever done, he manages to give it a lot of visual flair and linearity. He spreads just the right amount of clues in each act, and stylizes the film in such an elegant way for it not to feel overdone. He makes the experience very immersive and cinematic, even though the whole film is basically just people talking and arguing. So that was pretty fascinating to see. Of course, the acting is phenomenal, and I think the way they filmed this movie helped make the acting absolutely phenomenal. Basically what they did is that they rehearsed each of the 3 parts beforehand for 2 weeks, then shot it, and then going on to the subsequent one, rehearsing again and then filming again. And I think that probably helped the actors a lot in making them sink into their characters much more organically, and make their characters feel more evolved as time passes. When you're seeing the same characters 4 years later, 10 years later, to give you that sense that you are not, that person you are watching is not exactly the same as you saw the second before. Michael Fassbender and Kate Winslet absolutely carry this movie, with her playing his confidant, the only person he truly trusts. She's the one who is on the same level with him, not just intellectually, because pretty much everyone is on the same level with him intellectually, but she is on the same level with him also emotionally. She is the only one who can calm him down, who can bring him back to planet Earth, who can talk some sense into him. She is basically the voice of reason. And they are not a couple, actually, they are never together, but they sure as hell function like one. All of the actors playing the secondary characters do a great job as well, playing former colleagues, former collaborators, former girlfriends, All of them bring a lot of heart, a lot of humor, but also much of the emotional weight to the film. And at the end of the day, everything that happens is basically mirrored by his relationship to his daughter, to which he is a total dick in the beginning, just like he is a total dick to everyone. He doesn't even want to acknowledge the fact that she is his daughter, just like he doesn't acknowledge many of his collaborators. But over the years, he has to learn to open up more to her and to open up more to people and become a more decent person. And that's basically his interior conflict, that he has to come to terms with the fact that his life being inevitably changed by the people around him is just as important as him wanting to change the lives of everyone in the world. So there you go, one of my least anticipated films of 2015 actually turned out to be one of my favorites. I highly recommend it, I think it's great. Michael Fassbender gives another powerhouse performance, probably the best in his career so far. So there's my take on it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later with other reviews.